Welcome to the HRKyle Podcast, your go-to source for insightful discussions on leadership, job searching, and all things human resources. I'm your host, HRKyle, and each week we dive deep into topics relevant to professionals seeking to elevate their careers and organizations. Whether you're a seasoned leader, a job seeker navigating the ever-changing landscape of employment, or an enthusiast looking to stay ahead of the curve, this is the podcast for you. Join me as we explore practical strategies, share expert insights, and engage in meaningful conversations that empower you to succeed in today's dynamic workplace. So, adjust your headphones and let's dive in. Hello and welcome to another informative edition of the HRKyle Podcast. I'm your knowledgeable host, HRKyle. Today we're diving into a topic that many working professionals consider: going back to school. Whether it's to enhance skills, change careers, or simply pursue a passion, returning to school while juggling a career can be a daunting prospect. But fear not, because today we'll explore some key considerations to help you navigate this journey seamlessly. In segment 1, I'll delve into the considerations and challenges faced by working professionals contemplating a return to school. From setting clear goals and managing time effectively to navigating financial hurdles and building a support network, I offer practical insights to help listeners navigate this transformative journey with confidence. In segment 2, I have a guest joining me who has undertaken this challenge, and she'll share her experiences and the lessons she's learned about herself and the way to maintain success in both school and work. But before we talk about going back to school, we need to go take a brief break. But stay with us, because we'll be right back. Hello, fellow professionals. Are you ready to revolutionize your approach to recruiting? I'm HRKyle, and I'm thrilled to introduce you to my latest book, Recruiting is Easy, now available on Amazon and other online retailers. In today's dynamic HR landscape, it's all about strategic branding and engagement. My book unveils the secrets to crafting exceptional employee experiences, attracting top talent, and fostering strong connections. With Recruiting is Easy, you'll master the art of continuous improvement and adaptability, shaping the future of work one relationship at a time. Get your copy today and unlock the potential of HR as a strategic powerhouse. Remember, recruiting should be easy. I'm HRKyle, and together, let's redefine recruiting. Look for Recruiting is Easy on Amazon and other book online retailers. Welcome back, folks, to the HRKyle Podcast, where today we're talking about going back to school. No, not the Rodney Dangerfield version, but you as an established professional making the decision to go back to college, trade school, or vocational school while continuing to work. It's a big decision and a big commitment, and I want to be sure you get it right. First and foremost, before committing to going back to school, it's crucial to assess your goals and motivations. Ask yourself, what do you hope to achieve by furthering your education? Are you looking to advance in your current career, switch industries, or explore a new field altogether? Understanding your objectives will not only guide your academic choices, but also help you stay focused and motivated throughout the process. Now let's talk about time management. Balancing work, school, and personal commitments can be challenging, but it's certainly not impossible. Prioritize your task, create a realistic schedule, and don't forget to carve out time for self-care and relaxation. Remember, maintaining a healthy work-life school balance is essential for your overall well-being and success. Another important aspect to consider is financial planning. Going back to school often comes with a hefty price tag, including tuition fees, textbooks, and possibly a reduction in working hours. Explore all available options for funding your education, such as scholarships, grants, employer tuition reimbursement programs, or student loans. Additionally, budget wisely to ensure you can cover your expenses without any undue stress. Now let's address the elephant in the room: managing expectations. Returning to school as a working professional requires a significant commitment of time, energy, and resources. So be realistic about what you can achieve and understand that there may be sacrifices along the way. Set realistic goals, celebrate your successes, and don't be too hard on yourself when things don't go as planned. Remember, this journey is about growth and learning, both personally and professionally. Lastly, don't underestimate the power of support networks. Surround yourself with mentors, peers, friends, and family who understand and encourage your educational pursuits. Lean on them for advice, motivation, and emotional support when needed. Building a strong support system can make all the difference in your journey back to school as a working professional. Going back to school while also working is very doable, and you can be successful. You just need to fully assess the situation and have a plan like I've outlined above. Hold tight though, because we're far from done with this topic. After the break, I'll be welcoming a guest to the show who has a lot of experience with this subject. So let's take a quick break, and I'll be right back after you have an opportunity to learn more about what I've been up to.
Are you striving to lead your team to success? Or perhaps you're navigating the complexities of the job market. Introducing The Solution, the HRKyle YouTube channel. Your go-to source for insightful guidance and practical tips. With short 1 to 2 minute clips, our videos save you time while delivering impactful, usable strategies. From effective leadership techniques to mastering the job application process, access valuable advice in minutes. Don't miss out. Subscribe to the HRKyle channel on YouTube today.
Are you a business owner looking to build a thriving team? Or perhaps a job seeker on a quest for your dream career? Look no further than HRKyle. HRKyle is your trusted partner for all things human resources. We're not just about services, we're about success. For businesses, HRKyle offers tailored HR solutions from talent acquisition to compliance support. We're here to help your team flourish. And for the job seekers, HRKyle provides personalized career guidance and direction that only a seasoned HR professional can offer. We'll help you find that perfect job match. Don't settle for less. Choose HRKyle and unlock success today. Visit us at www.hrkyle.com. HRKyle, unlocking potential, empowering careers, transforming business. Welcome back, my loyal listeners, to segment 2 of the HRKyle Podcast. I hope you enjoyed that break and learning more about the things I'm up to. Today we're talking about successfully going back to school as an established professional. Now, in this segment 2, I'm going to be talking with someone who has a lot of experience with this topic. Olalade is a career services professional who works for a vocational school where a majority of the students are going back to school after establishing a professional presence. Now, in addition to this, she also is an established professional who is going back to school to pursue an additional degree. So it's an understatement to say she knows something about this topic. Olalade, welcome to the HRKyle Podcast.
Thank you, Kyle. Thank you so much for having me tonight.
Well, I'm very glad you're here and we're agreeing to share your wisdom. Now, we always start out with the easiest question of the night. Olalade, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Like Kyle said, my name is Olalade Carter. I am married. I've been married for 7 years. I have an anniversary coming up. And I live in Columbus, Ohio. I graduated from the Ohio State University with a bachelor's in human development and family science. And that's more of a multidisciplinary degree for folks who are not familiar with it. So I like to say it's like a catch-all degree. You can do pretty much a lot with it. You can go into grant writing. You can go into counseling, like being a counselor, human resources, things like that. So I graduated from OSU back in 2018. And I went the HR route. From there, I became an IT recruiter, then from there, I became a recruiting coordinator. And then from there, that's how I landed into the career services space. And like Kyle was saying, I'm also have returned back to school. I'm going to Franklin University. Shout out to them. I'm going to Franklin University and I'm gaining my master's in accounting.
Well, that's fantastic. And again, that leads so well into the discussion that we're having tonight because you've seen this topic from a lot of different sides, not the least of which that you're living it.
Right.
Now, as you mentioned, you're currently working in career services and job placement, but you also talked about spending quite a few years in recruiting. Now, tell me, how has that background enabled you to better serve the students and alumni in your current role, and especially as they're returning to school after a break?
Yeah, so I feel like my background in particular kind of it does very well, like transition very well into the career services space because as a recruiter, I'm telling my candidates that I'm searching for, I'm like, we're working on their resume, we're doing interview prep. I'm kind of a coach. As a recruiter, you are a coach, you're coaching up your candidate to be the best person and show their best, side or personality and characteristics for a hiring manager or for an interview. So that is basically what I'm doing in the career services space. I'm spending time with students and we're deep diving into their resume. Some students don't have a resume, so we're starting from scratch. I'm helping them build a resume. Some students, they have a resume that's 6 pages long because they are in an industry or they've been in that industry for like 20 plus years, but they decided to change. So alongside with resume writing, we do interview prep. Which is like we like to call them mock interviews where we'll just have a practice interview round. I'll ask them behavioral interview questions. And I think like my background in recruiting has also helped me communicate to people the resilience that's needed to look for a job. As a recruiter, you do have to have some grit and you have to recognize that, okay, finding a job or being able to fill a role, it might take some time. So just being able to come along our students in the career services space and let them know, like, it's okay if it takes you 3 months, it's okay if it takes you 6 months. You just need one role. You just need one yes. So I do think my background in IT recruiting has helped me in my career services space because I'm a career services specialist at an IT boot camp. So it was kind of a seamless fit.
Great advice. And especially you talk about resilience because whenever we're talking about job searching and interviewing and just that process in general, there's a lot of wear and tear that takes place. And it does take time, as you mentioned. And for one reason or another, an individual search may take longer than a month or 2 months or 3 months or 6 months. And that doesn't speak about the person. That just speaks more about the circumstance and the situation. So I'm so glad you brought up about that resilience because it is a topic that just comes up time and again. And we all know that eventually, if you stick to it, you are going to find a job and it's going to be a good fit for you. So thank you for sharing that.
Of course.
So as we've talked about, Ololade, you've worked in both third-party recruiting and as part of corporate recruiting. And that's also a unique dynamic to have there. What are a few things you liked and a few things you didn't like about those roles?
So I like this question. I think with recruiting, I'll start with the things that I liked. I loved the compensation, in the sense of what you put in, how hard you work is what you'll get out. If you know, all right, I have bills or a family member to take care of, you're going to go to work and you're going to grind, and then you're going to be able to see that like compensation, that salary right away, because recruiting is a commission-based role. And the types of recruiting that I've been in, I've always had like a base pay and then commission based off of the number of people that I placed. So that was really nice. I had like direct control and influence over how much money was in my pocket to some degree. Now that will lead me into the things that I don't like. I don't like the KPIs because I don't think it's realistic. One of the things in recruiting is you are judged, or your weekly conversations with your bosses are based off of how many people you place. And their idea is, well, if you just talk to 100 people, the statistically should be that you place at least 10 people. That's just simple math, right? But with recruiting, it's like I said before, it's out of my control how well that client or that candidate does in the interview. It's out of my control if the client pulls out last minute because they no longer have budget or they lost funding for a role, things like that. So with recruiting, I would definitely like to see more realistic KPIs. Maybe there's a different way to measure performance based off of things that are within the direct control of that person, of that recruiter. I also didn't like the competitive environment with recruiting. Like you'll get coffee in the morning with somebody in the break room, and then later that afternoon, this person has, I don't want to say stolen, but they've taken your candidate and they think they would be a great fit for another role. And that's money that you're losing out of your pocket. And it's always, I just didn't like that. It was too competitive. There was a lot of a lot of cutthroat things that had gone down, at least in the recruiting agencies that I had worked for. So that ultimately is what led me to go into recruiting coordination. But yeah.
And Ololade, you gave a great perspective there as well for those candidates out there that are listening that don't have that view. And what I call the view behind the curtain, so to speak, and what recruiting looks like on the other side. And many times candidates aren't aware of the things that are happening behind the scenes and some of the standards that you're being held to and measures, as you said, that you're being held to. And as you mentioned too, some things that occasionally sound a little shady.
Yeah. And can I say something, Kyle? I think
Please.
with the KPIs that they have, because, on LinkedIn now with the economy, and when I get on LinkedIn, the number one thing that I always see is people are like, this recruiter never got back to me. This recruiter never got back to me. I was ghosted, X, Y, and Z. I just want feedback as to why the interview didn't go well. Now my recruiter isn't reaching out to me. And I think if we had more realistic KPIs, that would take the pressure off of the recruiters, because the recruiters aren't ghosting you on purpose. They're not ghosting you because, they want to be evil and hold back feedback and not see you progress. No, they don't. They're not thinking about the candidates that much to be like, I want to be evil towards them or intentionally hurt them in some way. The recruiters it's stress. Our KPIs are, again, it goes back to that statistic. I got to reach out to 100 people to at least see to get 10 people to have some type of results, whether that's in the interview process, being able to speak to the hiring manager, or getting a job offer. So I think if we change those KPIs, then you would see that kind of trickle down in the overall interviewing and application process for people, because recruiters would have time to be like, all right, maybe I can carve out 20 minutes a day, and I'm going to start giving my feedback out to people, or I'm going to chase a hiring manager to gain feedback for my candidate and things like that. I think the KPIs don't just affect the individual recruiter. I think it affects candidates, hiring managers. It affects everything, if I'm just to be honest.
No, and I think that's a valid point especially from a leadership perspective. We see and we receive, I should say, the performance that we recognize and we reward. And to your point, you're not measured on whether you get back to a candidate, whether you get them feedback or whatever, but you're held very close to those measurements of how many people did you place, how many jobs did you fill, and those are what you're held to. And even in some cases, I've heard to where recruiters are told, hey, I'm not paying you to follow up. I'm not paying you to tell that person they're not getting a job. I'm paying you to place the people in the jobs.
Exactly.
So as we talked about early on, you recently returned to college for your master's degree. You're going to be finishing up in about 9 months, right? So as someone who's transitioned careers and industries and also gone back to school, what have you learned about yourself on both a personal and professional level when it comes to driving towards success?
Well, I think what I learned about myself initially is I am a scaredy cat. Going back to school and making that decision was not an easy one. I think actually taking that leap of faith and moving towards changing industries, or even going back to school after 5 years of being out of school, I just realized that there will always be what ifs. I think that if somebody is on the fence about making a change, or if they're on the fence about should I go for that degree, should I go for that certificate, I would urge you to make a pros and cons list. And I think there are a lot of reasons not to do something, but fear is not a good enough reason. And it just makes me think about that saying, you miss 100% of the shots you don't make. My first manager ever would say that all the time. And I think just going back to school has taught me personally that I do have a lot of fear, but I shouldn't let that fear stop me from making a change, especially if this is important to me. So there's that. I think it's also taught me that I need to have a balance in my work and personal life. I think I'm someone who, I was just telling my husband this, I'm someone who loves to be busy. I start to freak out when I don't have something to do. And with going back to school, I'm constantly busy, and that can lead to burnout. And it's really just forced me to be like, all right, I have to start prioritizing self-care. I have to come up with strategies to manage my stress, and I have to make a schedule and really focus on my relationships outside of school, outside of work, outside of, the business aspect of my life. So I think it's pushed me to really fight for a balance in work, and my personal life. Going back to school has taught me self-discipline and time management. I'm telling you, when I graduated and I got my bachelor's, the self-discipline kind of went out the window, because all it was is wake up, I got my 9 to 5, come back home, take care of everything that needs to be done. But really being back in school, it's improved my self-discipline, not just studiously, but personally. It's helped me think through my calendar and think ahead. My time management skills really have come into play here, where it's I need to be able to sit back and reflect on my week of, if I have a birthday party this weekend, or if I have plans to be with my family, then I need to sit down and I need to carve out 2 hours a day to either study, to read my books and things like that. So I really have had to fight for focus, to meet deadlines. Sometimes there's been some semesters I've had 2 classes instead of just 1. And those are competing deadlines, where it's there's 1 exam this week, but I also have a quiz and a project to get in. So it's really just taught me self-discipline and my time management skills, as well as resilience and adaptability, right? Because just because you go back to school, that doesn't mean life stops. That doesn't mean life will be easy outside of that. I still have I still have a 9 to 5. I'm balancing work and commitments, and personal commitments and things outside of that. And, I had a loss last fall. My aunt had passed away, and that was really hard. And I really did think about taking a step back from finishing my program. It really made me just stop and think, is this something that I really want? And it is. And I developed a resilience where it was all right, I do want this. I do have this ultimate goal in mind. I know my aunt wouldn't want me to stop just because she had passed. And so, yeah, I was just able to adapt, I guess, in that moment where I was grieving. But my teachers were willing to work with me because I spoke up. I let them know the situation. I was given flexible deadlines. And yeah, I was able to overcome that obstacle. So I really do feel like I've learned balancing work. I've learned the time management part. I've learned about all right, I can look my fears and my what ifs in the eye, and it's okay if I fail. I think what made me really hesitate to go back sooner was I didn't want to fail. And I think a lot of people are scared of failing. I don't know who welcomes failure, but just thinking about it, I think going back has proven to myself that I can fail. I might not get this 100% right, but that's okay. At least I tried. At least I can say, not what if I did this, it didn't work out. Now maybe I pivot. But so far so good. It's been working out. I'm not failing school. I'm actually doing really well. So I am really grateful for that, but it's given me insight.
That's just a beautiful story there, and thank you for sharing your successes as well as some of the challenges. I think our listeners benefit from hearing that story. And one of the big takeaways that I took from there it sounds like it's taught you a lot about yourself and that you're really capable of more than maybe even you thought you were capable of.
Yeah, I would definitely say that. I think if you would have told me 3 years ago, actually, I would have laughed 3 years ago if you were like, you're going to go back and get a master's, and not even just get a master's, you're going to go into the accounting field from HR. I would have laughed. They would not have thought I was capable of that. So I
Oh,
definitely
that's
agree.
awesome. That is awesome. Thank you for sharing that. So, Ololade, for our last question, for those listeners considering returning to school for a degree as you have, what advice would you give to make that transition easier in order to contribute to a successful outcome like you are achieving?
I definitely want to say if you're thinking about going back to school, if you're thinking about making a career pivot or transition, first of all, kudos to you because that's very scary. But I definitely think you should prepare your mind. Don't go into this with, what do they say, rose-colored glasses. It's going back to school, being in school, being a student it's not it's not easy, and especially if it's like you're someone who hasn't been in school for years, it will be different and it definitely will be trying. But I feel like I find it easier for me, at least personally for me, it's easier to do things when I just prepare my mind and I have a real conversation with myself of this is going to be hard. It's not just going to always be easy. This will be hard. And I think moving into my next point with that, preparing your mind, create a schedule. I don't want to say I'm not a planner, but I had to buy a planner going back into school just so I could see my week. Having a schedule means I could plan ahead and I can stay ahead. Like I was saying, I think earlier in my previous response, if I have a commitment on the weekend to like go to my nephew's birthday party, I have to know what my assignments are due. I have to know when they're due. I have to stay on top of that, really look at my time. Because, as an adult, we only get busier and busier for some strange reason, the older we get. So I would definitely say create a schedule, prepare your mind, have a support system. Like I said, my aunt passed away last fall, and there are so many other things I experienced a miscarriage. There were so many other, and those were times that I wanted to give up and quit, but I had a support system. I had my husband and my mom and my family members and friends that were there to encourage me, come alongside of me, rally really beside me, to keep going. And I really would have stopped, but I'm glad that I had people in my corner and in my ear, people that I let them know what I'm doing. And they were able to come alongside of me. So that was helpful, having a support system. And I think just lastly, make sure you have a goal. Runners, they have the finish line in mind, they're running towards something. Don't just go back to school on a hunch or a whim or because you think this might be cool. But there should be a goal. There has to be a why. We're purpose driven. We're human beings. Everybody wants to have a purpose. So you should have a goal in mind. Keeping that goal in mind will help you get there, will help the journey be easier. There'll be times where you're like, why am I up at 2 a.m. studying for this exam, studying for this quiz? I have work at 8, X, Y, and Z, fill in the blank of all the commitments that I have. But the next thing that I'm thinking in my mind is, well, I have this goal of I want to be able to provide for my family. I want to be a better provider, or I want to be in an industry where, God forbid, another pandemic happens. I want to be another industry that they're not going to lay off people or that doesn't get laid off easily. That's why I went back to accounting because, with the pandemic, HR departments were the first to go. But so I would tell people, prepare your mind, create a schedule, make sure you have your support system, make sure you're telling people what you're doing. And just have a goal in mind and keep your eyes focused on that goal.
Well, Lade, I got to give you credit. You've really shown a bright light on this topic of returning to school, and I'm so glad you could join us tonight. And I'm really proud of everything that you've done and just sharing your story with us tonight and being so forthright.
Thanks,
Unfortunately,
Kyle. I appreciate it.
no, you're very welcome. Unfortunately, though, that's all the time we have. So I want to thank you wholeheartedly for joining me tonight.
Thank you, Kyle. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate this. And you're doing great things with your podcast. I'm excited for all the different topics and how you're going to reach people. So thank you for your podcast.
Thank you very much for that feedback. And I appreciate it. Well, folks, sadly, that's all the time that we have together as well. We hope this episode has placed you in a much better position to go back to school if that's something you're considering, or maybe we planted that seed with this discussion tonight. Either way, I'm so glad you could join us. And as always, thank you. And if you enjoyed this episode, please like and follow so you don't miss the next episode. But until next time, this is HRKyle saying, stay focused, stay grounded, and stay tuned. Well, that's a wrap for today's episode of the HRKyle Podcast. We hope you found our discussion valuable and filled with insights that you can apply in your professional journey. Whether you're a business leader aiming to foster a thriving workplace or a job seeker looking to carve out your own path, remember that HRKyle is the compass that can guide you towards success. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and share it with your network. We're committed to being your trusted source for HR wisdom, and we look forward to having you back with us for our next episode. Remember, in the world of HR and professional growth, there's always room for progress. Be sure to visit our website at HRKyle.com. That's HRKyle.com to learn more about how we can help you meet your business and professional goals. So until next time, this is HRKyle signing off. Stay motivated, stay informed, and keep reaching for those career goals. Music provided by bensound.com. That's bensound.com.